Good Saturday morning to you here in Lincoln on the cheap seats, along with Jeff Benjamin. This is Doug Rutter, Doug, the administrator here at the Christian Village, and we'll be with you for the next hour. We invite your phone calls and talk about everything going on in the world of sports. You can call us, of course, at 217-737-3791. Anything you want to talk about in the world of sports, whether it's the Cubs, the Bulls, the Bears, the Illini, golf, a lot of things going on. It seems that have kind of come to a very down period in sports where there's the baseball season's going on. There's talk about the labor talks in both the NFL, the NBA. One of the majors in golf has just been completed. I guess, Doug, thanks for joining us this morning here at the Christian Village. We certainly appreciate the hospitality we've already had here today.
Absolutely, and what can only be described as a massive mistake by the radio station's management. They've asked me to sit in for the whole hour, and I'm excited. When we started to look at this week and what we're going to talk about, it's a dead time for sports. I mean, especially if you're not a particularly interested baseball fan. But then when you start to get into it, there are a lot of things that we could chat about. We still had that massive performance by Rory McIlroy. And his win in the U.S. Open. We could talk about, is that the best major performance ever? Is he finally, have we now found the replacement for Tiger Woods? Can he bring the kind of fans that Tiger brought? We could talk about that. We could talk about tonight, sport that nobody cares about, which is what I bring. U.S. men's soccer, they're playing Mexico tonight in the final of the Gold Cup, and for 90% of our listeners, they have no idea what I'm talking about, so love to chat about that. Some interesting stories. We had some players spouting off this week. Scottie Pippen had to walk back from his statement saying that LeBron's the best player ever. No. I meant Michael's the best player. And did he mean that? And do you think Michael Jordan's the best player that's ever played? We got a new football coach, at Lincoln Railers here in Lincoln, and we can talk about that, a little legacy issue. Also, Urlacher takes a swipe at the field in Soldier Field, says the field conditions are awful and playing there. So we could talk about that. Do you want to see field turf at Soldier Field? What would that be like? And also, is Urlacher one of the 10 best linebackers in the NFL? Well, one of his peers, another player, left him off of that list this week, and Urlacher had to respond to that. So a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yes, indeed. So again, if there's anything that you want to talk about, we certainly want to talk about what you want to talk about. 737-3791, give us a call, and we'd be happy to give you our opinions, whether you agree with them or not. We'll make you agree with them. At least Doug will, because I know he's a tough guy, and he wouldn't want to put up with that. I guess the season that's going on right now is baseball. So why don't we can start with that. Last night, the Cubs got a win in Kansas City. They come away with a victory 6-4 there. The White Sox couldn't seem to come back enough against Washington. They kept tying it up, forcing more extra innings, but in the end, one bad throw cost them a game, and they lost. But let's start with the Cardinals. Once they finally got the lights to work down at Busch Stadium, because I think it was the 8th inning that the one of the bank of lights at Busch Stadium went out for a while, so there was a little bit of, I think it was actually the start of the 9th inning, because Salas had just come in to relieve, and you wonder if that delay cost him, because the Major League home run leader, Jose Bautista, hits a home run in the 9th, and Toronto beats the Cardinals 5-4. St. Louis now 1-3 without Albert, something we can talk about a little bit later as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting is that that's the exact same bank of lights that has gone out in the past. And so, we're not exactly sure what's going on down there. Maybe Busch Stadium, those guys had gone for an early 7th inning and had let the lights go out. But yeah, the Cardinals couldn't seem to hold them off, and ended up dropping that game.
Holiday had a home run last night, providing some of the offense, but when you take, there's a difference between, at the beginning of the season, Pujols was struggling. He wasn't having that typical Albert Pujols start, and everyone kept waiting around. He's going to come around. He's going to come around. He finally started coming around, and then probably public enemy number one, Peter Kozma, made the throw that got Albert's arm in the way, and I think the Cardinals, being a Cub fan, I think there would be a lot of cynicism, say, well, they were just trying to hide the injury. I think the Cardinals were just being, they were doing their due diligence and just saying, well, we think it's just a sprain, because they wanted to make sure that they took a look at the injury. They didn't want to come out and say, oh, he broke it, and then it not be. So I think they just wanted to make sure that they looked at it, made sure they got the right medical advice about it. But you could just tell the way he was holding. I mean, Albert's a big guy.
Right.
And he, we've seen him hit with pitches. We've seen him get hurt in the past, and he just doesn't want to show the pain. But he was in pain, and you just had that feeling, especially from a Cub fan a few years ago when Derek Lee had the exact same thing happen to him. There was just that look of, it's broken.
Well, when he goes down on his back and he's rolling around on the ground, I mean, that's not a sprain. He's definitely injured. And I love the quote from Benjamin, who actually was the runner at the time. The collision was unavoidable. And exactly, what else is he going to say? Absolutely. But you look at that, and from my perspective, that's an injured prospect. I mean, there's the potential that he could be wearing blue, and so definitely, because the Cardinals are 1-3 since he's been injured, and so you take a guy like that out of the lineup, and it's definitely going to have an impact.
And of course, now they're talking, I think, 4 to 6 weeks, but you see some of the experts, especially some of the talking heads on some of the national cable shows, saying the way he hits and the fact that it is his bottom hand on the bat, how is that going to affect him differently? It's not like you can say, well, every person will recover from the same injury the same way. Derek Lee, it took him a couple years to really kind of get back, and he never got that power stroke back. Now, as far as power hitters, I'm sure Albert's a little bit better than Derek Lee ever would be. But, you wonder, is Albert sitting there thinking, maybe I should have taken that deal? Because, he's going to be out probably till, whether it be the end of July, 1st of August, and so he's going to have 2 months to really show folks what he can do, or he's going to show folks what he can't do anymore.
Right, and the question is, if he can't come back, as strong, or if he struggles, then people will start asking questions about his value at that point. And you got to think that this was going to be his payday contract. I mean, This contract was going to be the one that pays for him, until he's going to get a long-term deal. It's going to be for huge money. And so the question is, has this hurt him long-term if he can't come back strong at the end of the season?
737-3791, are you a Cardinal fan and want to see what are the Cardinals going to do with Pujols at the end of the season now that this injury has happened? Are you a Cub fan and you're thinking, oh, it'd be great to see him on the north side, and now you're going, well, I don't know, do we need another superstar who we've given that contract to that maybe we extended ourselves and we shouldn't have? Give us a call, 737-3791. The Cardinals, I'll be back at it again tonight. Garcia, who, of all the players that the Cardinals have acquired, they traded and they got Mulder. They've brought in Carpenter. Garcia really came out of nowhere, and he's turned into one of the better pitchers in the National League.
And it's surprising to see that. No one expected that at the beginning of the season.
But the Cubs, well, of course, with the Cardinals still 5 games over, they're just a game out of first place. The Cubs just a little bit further back. Just, they're 10 games out, or as we like to say, just 9 games behind the Cardinals. And for everyone who remembers when Chip Carey was one of the announcers for the Cubs, you always knew it was that part of the season where he thought the Cubs maybe were starting to fade out of it, because he would say, well, the Cubs are 12 games behind the front runners, but they still have 13 games with them, so we're actually still in it.
When you start talking about mathematical elimination,
yes,
that's a conversation. And I don't know, for the Cubs, when Jim Riggleman is the one giving your manager, support, I'm not exactly sure that that's the kind of a vote of confidence that you're looking for, a guy who just lost his job.
Well, and I guess before we talk about the Cubs, let's talk about Jim Riggleman, the former Cub manager, who this week quit as the manager of the Washington Nationals, a team that's above 500, a team that had won, 8 or 9 in a row. I mean, these are the Washington Nationals, or for us old folks, the old Montreal Expos. They're really having a good, successful season, at least for them. They're in the wrong division, because you've got the Phillies, you've got the Braves, then you've got, they're the best of the worst three there, the Marlins, the Mets, and the First and Nationals.
It's like saying you're the smartest kid in detention.
Yes. Jeff, you were there before, weren't you? But he thought that he had done a good job with a young team. He had turned this team around, got them playing very well. There was an option out there for his contract for next year, and he kept wanting to talk about it. And the powers that be decided, not yet, not yet. And so before the Nationals made their trip to Chicago to take on the White Sox this weekend, he said, I'd really like to talk about it. And the GM said, basically just pushed it aside. And he said, okay, then I must not be the guy, so I'm done. I'm going home.
Well, that was what was interesting to me was that he didn't quit because he didn't get a deal. He quit because he didn't get a conversation about a deal. I mean, he just said, look, I just want to talk about it. Right. And the GM said, we're not ready to talk about it. And so he said, if I don't have this conversation, I'm not getting on the bus. They don't ride a bus, of course, but but he said, I'm not, we're not going to do it. And the GM said, well, we're not going to do it. And so I think that's a huge blow for Washington. I think they had a lot of momentum. That's the best baseball they've been playing in that city for a long time, and I think that's a huge mistake by the GM there.
737-3791. What would you do? How do you view Jim Riggleman or anybody who would be in a position like that, who said, I just want to talk about it, and he was basically said, nope, we're not going to talk about it. Was he selfish because he was looking for his own contract and he quit on this young team? Or was he standing up for what he thought was right to say, look, if I'm not the guy, just tell me I'm not the guy? And I think that's all he would have wanted to hear, is that, we'll talk about it at the end of the year. But he didn't even get we'll see. He just got no, we don't want to talk about it, so, okay, I'm done.
Right, and if you want to have an interim manager, if you have, conversations that you're having with other people, or, it just seemed like the GM was on vacation and didn't want to come back for a meeting, And so, I don't understand it. I don't know why you do that. I mean, Riggleman's a good manager. He was having a good year. Why not at least take the meeting, and maybe in that conversation you convince him, here's the things we're looking at, or, it just doesn't make sense to me.
And of course, with a young team, the one thing you really want to have is a lot of stability. So they had Riggleman up through this week. Last night they had their interim manager, John McLaren, and the reports are that the Nationals have or are going to name former Major League manager Davey Johnson as their manager for the rest of the year. So, who's next? Is George Bamberger still alive? So, 737-3791. Anything you want to talk about on this morning's Cheap Seats, Doug and I'd be happy to talk to you about that. We are here at the Christian Village, and we want to remind you that the Christian Village is Lincoln's only faith-based retirement community and is the area's leader for senior living and healthcare services. The Village provides quality, compassionate care in a loving Christian environment. They offer a wide array of living options for older adults, such as independent living, rehabilitation, skilled nursing, and memory care. The Christian Village, located here at 1507 7th Street in Lincoln, they are a community of compassion. We're going to take our first break here on this Saturday morning. It is June 25th, or in our house, hey, Daddy, it's only 6 months till Christmas. We'll be back here in just a moment. You're watching and listening to the Cheap Seats here on WLCN.
Oh, very
wow.
Nice.
Boy, Toto. Can't beat the 80s music,
Absolutely.
Back on the Saturday Cheap Seats, along with Doug Rutter, the administrator here at the Christian Village. Jeff Benjamin filling in for the vacationing Josh Komnick. Josh and his family in the south of France, wasn't that? The south of France, or somewhere out there. I know they're on a boat, so Josh, certainly hope you're enjoying the week off, and we look forward to getting you back real soon. 737-3791 is the number you can call in to talk about anything in the world of sports. And Doug, we were coming in this morning, we were talking about the weather, about how nice and cool it is. It seems kind of almost spring-like, and I know there's some folks that are getting ready for the 4th of July holiday and everything, wanting the weather to be a little bit warmer. But I know there's one individual in particular out there who is very glad that this weather, whether it's cool or whether it's hot, it has certainly dried up a little bit, and that's Marty Spears, the race director from the Lincoln Speedway. And Marty joins us this morning. Marty, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How are you doing today?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing real good. It's nice to see the sunshine. I tell you, we had a great crowd out at the Speedway last night, and there's a lot of cars out there last night. We had a great show.
I know, especially for someone in what you do every Friday night, and of course you've got some special dates coming up that we'll talk about here in just a few moments. You probably pay as much attention to the weather as our farmers around here, because you've got a very slight window to get those races in, and the weather that we've been having, like we had last night, absolutely perfect for the fans to go out and enjoy Lincoln Speedway.
Yep, you hit the nail right on the head. I tell you, I know a couple other speedways around the area. I know the promoters at both places. In fact, one of them was there last night. They've got to race 2 times this year. That's both of them. And I mean, it's just been crazy. It seems like you have good weather all week. The weekend comes, it just goes down sour, you know. But no, fortunately, last night we had great weather. We had a great car count. We had a great crowd. It was good to Lincoln Speedway last night.
Marty, why don't you tell us about some of the results and how things went last night? And I know you've got a special race coming up. I believe it's this coming weekend. Is that right?
That's correct. On 4th of July weekend, on July 3rd, we'll be racing a Summer Nationals, full-blown late model show. It'll be a great show. It's big money to win. But yeah, last night we actually had makeup features for the night. We got raked out. Started the program last night. 2 features. First was a crate feature, late model feature. That was won by Randy Myers of Springfield, followed up by Evan Fink of Glasford. Montauk Division makeup feature. Max Golden from Springfield, Illinois, won that, followed by Mason City's Brian Lynn. And went into the Hornet Division, starting off last night's program. Gary Penninger of Lincoln, Illinois, is the runner-up in that division, followed by Corey Wells. And in the Street Stock Division, we had number 90, John Ferris. He's from Marquis Heights, followed by Zach Weibel of Greenview, Illinois. UMOP division was Todd Bates of Canton, Mark Anderson of Canton. Great late models was Brad Denny. Brad's the owner of Steam River Speedway in Canton, Illinois. He came down and raced with us last night. He got the victory, followed by Chad Evans of Mattoon, Illinois. And to round out the night in the modified division was Tommy Duncan, followed by Mike Cassine Jr. We had a great night, and like I said, a great bunch of people came out to see us last night.
Yeah, we actually drove by and saw that a nice crowd out there at Lincoln Speedway, and you said coming up this weekend you've got the Summer Nationals. Tell the folks that are listening and that are going to be watching this back on WLCNonline.com, what are we going to see anything different with the Summer Nationals coming in this coming weekend?
Okay, well, first of all, appearance-wise, a lot of people that are just, casual fans will not see a difference. What the deal is, a late model, full-blown late model is a $25,000 engine as opposed to a smaller crate engine. These guys will be flying down. I mean, we're talking like 11, 12 seconds around a quarter-mile track. These guys will be flat out flying. We'll have a good crowd there, so I just would suggest if people want to come there, gates, I believe, open at 3, so if they want to come put a blanket down on the bleachers, I'd encourage it, because I'm telling you, we're going to have a great crowd. If the weather's good, there's a bunch of people there. A lot of people come. People will travel several hundred miles to come and watch the national show, so it should be a good deal.
Very good. And as you said, the gates open at 3. Now, are all the normal times with the actual start time of the races, are those going to be as they've usually been throughout the season, or will there be any difference with the Summer Nationals coming in?
The only difference will be that we will qualify as late model, so it'll still be the same time, except when we start the hot lap, that night we'll start qualifying. Other than that, that should be a great show.
Very good, Marty. Well, thank you for joining us this morning, and again, we wish you the same weather, maybe a little bit warmer, with it being the 4th of July, and of course a lot of good luck coming up with the Summer Nationals coming to the Lincoln Speedway, and it's a big event. It's something that probably a lot of the racetracks don't get a chance to host, and Lincoln's fortunate enough to have them coming in next weekend, so good luck having those coming here to Lincoln.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. I tell you, UFD gave us a great date. I mean, you can ask for a better, Sunday, the day before 4th of July. People are off on Monday. We're anticipating a great show.
Very good.
Again, you guys. Thanks again, you guys, for supporting Lincoln Speedway. Really appreciate it.
Certainly. We enjoy having her here. Thanks, Marty.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Marty Spears, the race director from the Lincoln Speedway. And I tell you, Doug, it's, you go by and you see the crowds out there, and, there are some fans that it's just not their thing, but for the folks that are race fans, it's perfect to have that right in your own backyard. and with something as noted as the Summer Nationals coming in, and if we can get weather like this, they may have a huge turnout, and that all works good for Lincoln.
Absolutely. It's a great deal for Lincoln to have that entertainment venue here in town, and it'll be a great show.
You know, and as Marty said, there may be people that travel quite a distance to come see just the Summer Nationals. Well, with it being 4th of July weekend, maybe they're eating in our restaurants, they're staying in our hotels, they're shopping here. Can't turn that down.
Absolutely. You know, the facility's got a really nice Oldsmobile. I may think about taking it out there and see if we can give it a spin as well.
Jim, what about the station van? Can we turn that around? 737-3791. Anything you want to talk about in the world of sports, that's also the number you can call in for our trivia question this morning. We have got a couple sets of passes to Knight's Adventure Park, or Knight's Action Park, and it's actually the Action and Adventure Pass. So there's a lot more involved with this than just the water park. It's the Adventure Day Pass, the unlimited miniature golf, lots of things that you can get involved with these. We've got the 2 sets of 2, and I believe each set is valued at $60. So good prizes here. So if you're the first person in, we'll give one away now, and we'll give one away later if we can. The NBA draft was this past week.
Right.
So the trivia question this morning first is, in what year's draft was the last player drafted from the University of Illinois drafted? How long has it been since someone from the University of Illinois was drafted in the NBA draft?
Wow, that's a tough one.
Now, unfortunately, had they gone to Uzbekistan or something like that to college, because of the 60 players drafted the other night, 45 of them came from U.S. colleges. So 25% came from foreign countries, and I know one of the folks on the NBA draft in their post-draft coverage said, this really kind of hurts the kids that do what you think is the right thing. They stay in school for 4 years. They get their degree. They made a commitment to the college for 4 years, and when it got to the end of the round, there were a lot of players from foreign countries being drafted, and some of them have contracts with their country's national team, so they may not be here for 2, 3, 4 years. I think even the Bulls' first pick, Nikola, is it pronounced Murtasek?
Why not?
Okay.
I don't think he's listening.
You're sure?
So.
But, he has a contract, I think, for at least 2 or 3 years.
With Real Madrid, yeah.
Right, so he may not be here, so, were they drafting these foreign players because of the labor dispute? Because if they draft him, they have to pay him? I mean, there's a lot of thoughts as to why, but, I guess it's the devil you know against the devil you don't. Would you rather have players that you've seen play college here in the U.S. against competition you're familiar with, or you get to see some grainy film from Turkey that, you're like, oh, he looks okay.
Well, but let's not pretend like they're, playing on a dirt court, in the middle of the Congo. I mean, Madrid's a decent size. I think they have running water in most of the city there.
That's good.
But I think, a lot of times, increasingly what you're seeing is the college draft ended up being more and more about drafting on potential, and there's so much of financial commitment, and with so many NBA teams now struggling financially. I mean, this isn't the NFL where every team makes millions of dollars. There are teams that are losing money, and so to go out there and and to invest millions of dollars in a player that you've only seen play college maybe 1 year. Most of these players are coming directly out, or you've only seen them grainy footage from the state championship that they just finished playing in. And so, sometimes these European players, you've seen them play in professional settings, albeit European professional settings, but they've been playing professional basketball for 3-4 years, and so there's less of a risk factor. They can contribute sooner. And they can play better. I read Michael Wilbon's column on ESPN.com where he made an interesting point, and he said old people win. I mean, young people in the NBA sell tickets, but old people win. You look at, the Dallas Mavericks,
There you go.
Every player in that starting lineup that was a contributor over, 50, now over 30 years old. I mean, they had some AARP members out there. I mean, I remember Jason Kidd playing at Cal when I was in high school, and so, you talk about that and you start looking at the teams that have really won over the past few years, the Mavericks, the Celtics. You're looking at veteran players who are winning championships. Now, that may change, and we all expect it to change with the Heat and the Bulls, who are building around youth. But a lot of these players take some time to bed into the professional game, and so if a team can go out there, they can see a player who's played professionally, who's a mature player who can fit into a system. That's where they want to put their money as opposed to development projects.
Well, and with talking about Dallas and foreign players, Dallas probably with one of the top foreign players ever to come in the league, in Dirk Nowitzki.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's but you talk a little bit about Kyrie Irving, the number 1 pick. How many games did he play in college? Was it 11, 12? Because I know there was injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And
he played 11 games
11
for Duke. Mm-hmm.
So when I was younger, watching the NBA draft, that first round was expected to be the player you draft is going to be starting and scoring and being one of your main go-to guys. And as you just mentioned, it seems now that teams are drafting for he can start helping us a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and then on and on and on. I don't know. What did they say? This may have been the worst NBA draft ever?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it was light. I mean, when you're talking about Jimmer Fredette, phenomenal college basketball
mm-hmm.
player, but I mean, do you think he's much different than a Steve Alford type? I mean, he was a scorer who could find his shot and could knock down. He could score big points, but at the end of the day, do you think he's going to be able to do that with LeBron James draped over him? Do you think he's going to be able to do that with 7 other, defensive stoppers? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But, he's one of the top prospects. And you look at, even at Kyrie Irving, 19 years old, 6'3", so not a huge guy. And that's your number 1 pick. That's your go-to pick. Would you even compare him to John Wall? Do you think he's, 70%, 60% the player that John Wall was?
Well, and with with some of the drafts, and you talked about Jimmer, one of the things I heard this week was, they drafted him, and they're already talking about him maybe being their point guard at Sacramento, where they've got 7 or 8, shoot first kind of players. And here's a guy who led the nation in scoring and set all kind of BYU records for scoring, and he's the one they expect to rein everybody in. I just don't see that happening.
Jimmer's a chucker. There's no doubt about it. And, I mean, he's open when he steps off the bus. So, I mean, he's a guy that likes to throw it around. And so it'll be interesting to see them try to work that. And, the interesting thing will be, what does Sacramento do with their team now through trades and free agency? Are they going to try to reorient that team and build it around Jimmer Fredette? Or, do they try to fold him into that shoot-first mentality?
And, of course, the bigger long-term question for Sacramento is, will they even be in Sacramento next season? They're giving them 1 more year, so it's tough to see teams like that struggling. But as you said, I think the stat was 22 of the 30 teams in the NBA are losing money.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's funny how sports are handled, because being the administrator here, obviously the number 1 goal is patient care.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you want to make sure that the patients and the residents are taken care of, they get the care that their family is expecting them to get. But there's also a business side to it.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And if businesses in the normal world were run like sports businesses, what would happen?
Right, exactly. And if you took, the business practices of a lot of our NBA and NHL franchises, you put them in the real world, you'd call that the federal government. I mean, that's how, that's what you're looking at there. And it's, it's these millionaires who, this is their hobby.
Mm-hmm.
These billionaires, this is their hobby, and they keep throwing money into it. and keep squeezing the labor force every time a new CBA comes out.
737-3791. Give us a call. Anything you want to talk about in the world of sports. Remember, we've got a trivia question out there. What year NBA draft was the last one where a University of Illinois basketball player was drafted? And we got some passes to the folks down at Knights Action Park to hand out to you for the first one to call with the correct answer there. And real quick, Doug, before we move off the NBA draft, we talked about it possibly being one of the worst NBA drafts ever, and we did not hear Dimitri McCamery or Jeremy Richmond's name at all. I mean, and that's not necessarily a knock against them, but you take a look at a kid like Richmond. If he stays, maybe to his sophomore, to his junior year, when you may have another thin class, okay, instead of being someone who's not drafted, maybe he does get drafted.
And the big question is this really a statement about the state of college basketball?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when we looked at the Final Four, and everybody looked at that and said, this is the worst Final Four, the worst March Madness that we've seen in a long time. Is it the quality of the players? Is it the parity between and the distribution? Is the NBA the problem? Why is it that it just seems like the quality of young basketball talent isn't what it used to be?
I think we've got a guest for one of our trivia questions. So good morning. You are on the Cheap Seats.
Good morning. Is it the class with Augustine and D. Brown?
Do you remember what year that was?
I want to say 2005.
Well, I tell you what, it was actually 2006, but since that was the year that they were drafted, we will go ahead and give that to you. Who is this?
This is Rod Clark.
All right, Rod, I tell you what, if you want to hang on for just a moment, we will get your information. Now, do you remember where each of those were drafted to?
Yeah, D. Brown went to Utah and Augustine went to Orlando.
Do you remember when the year before Darren Williams had been drafted by the Jazz,
right,
and with D. Brown being drafted by the Jazz, everyone thought, oh, we're going to put this great backcourt back together again, and I think D's no longer, I think he's playing overseas, but
somewhere.
D, and I think kind of what Doug just mentioned here, in regards to Jimmer Fredette. Jimmer, a great college basketball player. D. Brown was a great college basketball player.
Exactly.
Once you got to the pros, that was more of Darren Williams' game. But when D. Brown was running the breaks for the U of I, well, obviously they got to the national championship game, and there's still some that say Scott May is still fouling people, his son. So, but Rod, thanks for calling in. Congratulations on that, and we'll have these set aside for you, and hope you enjoy them.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Rod. So, yeah, the class of the 2006 NBA draft, James Augustine and D. Brown. James Augustine actually drafted before D. Brown.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what was D? Was D 6'1"? 6'2"? I mean,
well, it depends on do you believe the program or do you believe the measuring tape? Because
right.
So. But it's a Saturday morning here on the Cheap Seats. We are going to take another break. We want to thank everyone for joining us, and of course, we want to thank the folks here at the Christian Village. Even their guy in charge here is helping us out this morning. Christian Village, of course, Lincoln's only faith-based retirement community. It's the area's leader for senior living and healthcare services. The Village provides quality, compassionate care in a loving Christian environment. They offer a wide array of living options for older adults, such as independent living, rehabilitation, skilled nursing, and memory care. It is the Christian Village, located at 1507 7th Street in Lincoln, a community of compassion. We'll be back with more of the Saturday Morning Cheap Seats in a moment here on WLCN.